This video will explain the process of changing the wire on a MIG welder. This process is performed when you need a wire with a different material or different size, and it is also used to replace the wire when the wire runs out. For this process, you will need the following equipment. You will need one set of welding pliers. Welding pliers are designed to perform a number of welding-related tasks. You may use normal pliers, however, they may cause minor damage like scrapes to some of the replaceable parts. You will also need replacement wire. Notice the size marked on the wire spool. This marking will be important as we continue with these instructions. If the hole in the center of the contact tube is no longer circular, or if you are changing wire size, you will need to replace the contact tube. Be sure that the size marked on the contact tube matches the wire size. If you are changing wire size, you will need to replace the drive roll. If your drive roll has two channels in it, it may work for two different size wires. Make sure that the size marked on the drive roll matches the size marked on the wire spool. Now it is time to begin the instructions. Some of the details in these instructions will be different depending on the welding machine. When in doubt, check your user's manual to find machine-specific details. To change the wire, you need to perform three main steps: removing the old spool, inserting the new spool, and testing the setup. Step 1. Removing the old spool. First, use welding pliers to remove the nozzle. The nozzle typically slides on and off, but some machines have threaded nozzles. Consult your user's manual to determine which method to use. When sliding the nozzle on and off, it is sometimes helpful to wiggle the nozzle. Next, use welding pliers to unscrew and remove the contact tube. Now, open the welder so that you can access the spool and the drive roll assembly. To prevent the wire from unraveling, use one hand to hold the wire to the spool. Then, cut the wire between the drive assembly and the spool. Secure the wire so that it will not unravel, but be careful because the ends may be sharp. If you are replacing an empty spool, this step is unnecessary. Next, unlatch the drive rolls and open the drive roll assembly. This process may be different depending on the machine. The knob on the latch is used to adjust the tension and may need to be loosened to open the assembly. Use the welding pliers to remove the wire by grasping the wire protruding from the welding gun and pulling. If the wire is difficult to remove, you may need to clean out the welding gun after the wire is removed. Now you need to remove the retaining ring. This is done by pressing the buttons on both sides and pulling. Now you can slide the old spool off. Step 2. Inserting the new spool. To align the new spool, make sure the peg lines up with one of the two holes on the back of the spool. Also, be sure that the wire feeds directly into the drive roll assembly as shown. Do not set up the spool so that the wire has a bend in it, as shown. Now that you know how to align the spool, Place the spool on the hub and make sure that it is properly aligned. Next, replace the retaining ring by placing the spring on and pressing the two buttons on the side and sliding it back on, similar to how you removed it. Now, feed the wire into the inlet, across the drive roll, and into the outlet, as shown. Also, close the drive rolls and relatch the lever. Step 3. Finishing the setup. To test if the tension is properly set, press the feed switch on the welding gun and make sure that you can stop the spool by applying slight hand pressure. If it is too hard to stop with your hand, loosen the knob as shown. If it is too easy to stop with your hand or does not feed at all, tighten the knob. Once the tension is correctly set, continue to press the feed switch until the wire sticks out of the gun about 3 inches. Next, slide the appropriate contact tube over the wire and use the welding pliers to screw it back into the welding gun. It should be tight enough that it will not fall off during normal use. Now, use the welding pliers to reattach the nozzle. Remember, when attaching a slide-on nozzle, a slight wiggling motion can help. Finally, press the feed switch and make sure the wire is still free to move. Now, close the welder and make sure that the snaps close completely. You're finished. You may now begin welding.